Lawmakers on Capitol Hill are looking to limit President Trump's power to impose tariffs. A newly proposed bipartisan bill known as the Trade Review Act of 2025 would require the president to notify Congress of new tariffs within 48 hours, would give Congress 60 days to approve those tariffs and the ability to end them at any time. Here with more, we've got Democratic Senator from Massachusetts, Elizabeth Warren. Senator Warren, thank you for making the time. You are calling on Congress to stop these tariffs, but the president has already come out planning to veto any congressional action, and you still don't have full bipartisan support. Is there a veto-proof measure that you could realistically accomplish on tariffs?
Well, so let's remember, I very much appreciate that right now there are Republicans as well as Democrats who are saying that what Donald Trump is doing with tariffs is a disaster, not good for our economy, not good for American families. So the question is, what can we do together? You know, there's already legislative authority for Congress to roll back the emergency declaration that Donald Trump has made. And if we use that legislative authority, then the tariffs are no longer in place. We can do that. We can do it quickly. And I think it's what we ought to do right now.
What are you hearing from your Republican counterparts in Congress about how they are hearing from their own constituents on the potential impact of tariffs and how that impacts their likelihood to join you on this?
You know, I'm not hearing from anyone in Congress, Republican or Democrat, who are hearing from people back home that Donald Trump's tariff announcements have been good for them. Let's face it, this kind of across-the-board tariffs, not thought through, not to protect a particular industry or to onshore a particular supply chain, not brought in over time, but instead just this massive shift. This is something that the chairman of the Federal Reserve has already said is going to drive up costs for families through inflation and drive up unemployment simultaneously. And families are really, really worried about that. They're also worried because they're already seeing prices go up. There are already those companies that are announcing, oh, tariffs are coming, so we're raising our prices right now. Let's face it, this is just a form of price gouging. And what the tariffs permit companies to do is when everyone's talking about prices going up, they get to raise their prices not just to pass along costs, but they get to raise their prices just to boost profits because they think they can get away with it. That's going to be really tough on American consumers, and they're pretty upset about it, and they're letting their representatives and their senators know about that.
So, Senator Warren, help me understand the extent to which you feel that you will be able to successfully bring back congressional authority over tariffs. Obviously, the president had utilized IEEPA, talking about how these tariffs required some sort of emergency economic power. Do you think one of your tools that may be more effective is Congress proving that there was, in fact, no emergency here?
In fact, that's what IEEPA requires, right? It permits Congress, it gives Congress already a role. You're right to focus on that statute. And it gives us the power just to come in and vote and say there is no emergency. And remember, last Wednesday, that's when we saw the first crack in the Trump Republican senators' wall. And that was that Democrats introduced a bill. Remember, at that point, we only had the tariffs against Canada and Mexico. Introduced the bill saying we are not in an emergency with Canada. And that would have rolled back those tariffs. And not only did all the Democrats vote in favor of that, we had 4 Republicans cross the aisle so that a majority in the Senate have already voted to say no to the tariffs with Canada. Now, we need the House of Representatives to do the same, but the bill is there. It's now pending, this resolution. It's not even a bill, this resolution under existing statutory authority. So this is a moment when pressure from back home, from all those small businesses who are worried about what's going to happen to their own costs or whether or not consumers are going to be able to buy their products. Pressures from families saying they're worried about costs going up or about losing their jobs.
And so, Senator,
this is the moment we could see a change
given
among Republicans.
And given all those challenges that you lay out, one body that does have emergency power right now is the Federal Reserve. Do you think the Fed should come in with an intermediate cut?
Well, the problem the Fed's got is that it's being pulled in two directions at once. On the one hand, we're watching markets go down. But on the other, the Fed is saying they're very worried that inflation will go up and simultaneously that unemployment will go up. Remember, the Fed has very limited tools, and an interest rate reduction at this point may play in to the right place on jobs. But if it's pulling the other way on inflation, I think they've got a really hard path in front of them. And that's the problem you get into when it's chaos. And that's what it is that the president of the United States has created. This is the dumbest trade war in history. And this is a potential recession created not because we had years of building up risk in the financial system as we did in 2008, or because there's been a war. Instead, this is one person creating enough chaos that it may bring down not just the American economy, but the worldwide economy.
And Senator, are you concerned about a bank run given all that chaos?
Well, again, it's how far out this is going to echo. And yes, as people start to have to ratchet back on their investments, as they have to start selling off assets to meet margin calls, then you start to worry. Are the banks in a steady place? And this is where the Secretary of Treasury needs to act more aggressively. Yesterday he was talking about how all these people that Donald Trump and Elon Musk have illegally fired, they'll go work in the factories. Well, those factories aren't built. In the real world, that simply is not possible right now. Instead of engaging in that kind of fantasy talk, he should be convening the FSOC, the oversight that we have, the oversight committee, and it should be right now pulling all of the economic leaders throughout government together and working on a plan to make sure that our entire financial system is secure. Mm-hmm. But right now, the Secretary of Treasury just seems to be off on a sales pitch rather than actually doing his job of convening FSOC and making sure that our entire economy at least holds off as much of the damage as possible.
And Treasury Secretary Besson is meeting with Jamieson Greer with USTR. They're going to be speaking with Japan about a potential deal. If deals are made, markets are going to potentially rally off of that. Is deal making sufficient in your view on tariff policy?
Look, much of the damage is already underway. Because if Donald Trump says he goes for a deal today, is anyone confident he'll be on that same deal tomorrow or the next day or the next day? Who makes an investment that will take 20 years to amortize? Who builds a factory based on having a pretty clear understanding of what the international trade picture looks like at a time when Donald Trump is saying over here, over there? The tariffs will be this big, no, this big, this big, this big. Uncertainty does not help create investment here in the United States or anywhere else around the world. And that's the real problem. Donald Trump is out there just shooting wildly. And that's bad for American families, bad for the American economy.
And Senator, I want to end with your message to constituents who are concerned about their 401ks, who are even concerned about missed Social Security payments. What would you tell them?
I would tell them to remember that right now, Congress has power and that Congress can roll these tariffs back and steady this economy out. But it's going to take Republican support to make that happen. The laws are in place. We just need to vote to make that happen. So let your senators, let your representatives hear from you. If you want those tariffs leveled out, you want to have something steady, make those phone calls, send those emails, send those texts. Now is the time.
Senator Warren, thank you so much for making the time for Yahoo Finance. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.